to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to couple two topics that came out today on the New York Giants. One regarding the backup quarterback with Alex Tanney. The other talking about what position the New York Giants may very well be looking to target in free agency and, where they plan to spend the bulk of the money and which players I would think they'd be looking at if they plan to do so. In addition to that, I'll be working on my mock draft. I have work until about 5, but hopefully I can have that completed for you guys later tonight. If not, it'll definitely be up tomorrow. My post-combine mock draft. But we'll start with the news on Alex Tanney, and we'll get into the exact quote in a second. Of course, I made a video on this talking about who I think the New York Giants should look for in free agency at the quarterback position. Now, by bringing Tanney back, that doesn't necessarily mean that he will be the backup. It means he's going to be given the opportunity in training camp to compete for the backup position. None of the money is guaranteed. I'll get into the exact specifics in a second, but I'm not surprised they're bringing him back. He obviously had a great working relationship with Daniel Jones, which is why I think the New York Giants kept him rostered in the first place. A lot of times you don't keep 3 quarterbacks. I think he went to his house for Thanksgiving, if I remember correctly. So they definitely had a good working relationship, and I would assume that's why they picked up the option for Alex Tanney. Even though the money is not guaranteed, I would expect him to probably make the roster. But we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out in the offseason. I still think they can attack guys in free agency, guys like Chase Daniels, guys like Mike Glennon. There's a number of talented veteran quarterbacks that the New York Giants could have their eyes set on to try to mentor Daniel Jones and show him the ropes. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the free agency news regarding the cornerback position. And if this is true, and this is just what was gathered from a New York Post writer that was at the Combine talking to scouts, but if it is true, I would imagine that you could cross Jeff Okudah off the list. And we're going to find this out in about 2 weeks, where the New York Giants spend their free agency money. But according to him, he thinks that they will be spending it on the cornerback position. And I am one that is in favor of that. Of course, the New York Giants cut Janoris Jenkins for good reason. I think they were going to cut him anyway. Based on his age and how he was starting to decline in play, and he was making $15 million a year, I think that they would have cut him anyway to save the money. Obviously, they cut him for the reasons in season, the word that he said. But, I think it's a good idea to go out there and sign a veteran cornerback because when you look at their secondary, they're all basically second-year players who have not reached their peak yet. I think they need an established guy there to be the number one corner, to not put too much pressure on guys like Sam Beal and DeAndre Baker, and I'll talk about the 2 most obvious options in a second. But let's pull up the quotes today regarding these topics. First thing we're going to talk about is the cornerback position, and the quotes that was written in the New York Post today. Expect the Giants to prioritize the cornerback position in free agency 1 year after mistakenly failing to do so, sources said. I don't know if it was a mistake not to do so last year because you had Jenkins, you had DeAndre Baker, but I think this year it would be a mistake not to bring in a veteran corner. Even with the possibility of Ohio State's Jeff Okudah will be available at number 4, the Giants understand the need to add a veteran. There is optimism things clicked for DeAndre Baker, one of the 3 first-round picks in 2019 late in his rookie season. Other teams are not sure he has NFL cornerback speed. The Giants' pitch to free agent Byron Jones could include offensive coordinator Jason Garrett, Jones' head coach with the Cowboys for the last 5 seasons. James Bradbury is another coveted option. And, I've talked about both these guys. I've talked more about Byron Jones being that he's probably, by most people's standards, the number 1 cornerback in this year's class. He's coming off he was still pretty good. The year before, he was a Pro Bowler, and he was a very good cover corner. Former first-round pick, had a great combine, I remember, and, people were excited about him for the Dallas Cowboys. He converted from the safety to the cornerback position in 2018 under Chris Richard, made the Pro Bowl. This year, he was still pretty good. I think if you bring either one of these guys in, though, you're going to have to overspend. Bradbury, of course, has connections to Dave Gettleman. Gettleman drafted him with the Carolina Panthers, and he was a standout there. So that's the connections with both of them. One has a connection with Jason Garrett, the other with Dave Gettleman. But this is going to be the reported asking price for both of them. Now, I would think that Byron Jones would get this money. I don't necessarily know if James Bradbury would, but they're both still in their prime, and, maybe he would. It is a scarce market. There are a lot of teams out there that could use a cornerback, and the Giants are certainly one of them. But this was off Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. Multiple sources from the Combine say that the Panthers cornerback James Bradbury, one of the top corners on the market, is aiming for $15 million per year or more on a new deal. Washington among teams expected to be involved. Byron Jones, Bradbury, and others plan to reset the corner market. And every position is gonna get reset. It happens every single year. And if the Giants plan to spend the bulk of their money in free agency, which is what this article hinted at, these would probably be the two guys you were looking at. They could look at a few other players as well, but Byron Jones projects to be the top paid corner, being that he does have a connection to Garrett. The Giants do need a corner. It could make sense. Me personally, I'd probably rather spend that money somewhere else, but at least it would set you up for the draft where the Giants at that point would not have to draft a corner throughout the entire draft, because then Baker would be properly set up at the 2 spot. You'd have Beal, you'd have Ballantyne, you'd have Love. You'd have a lot of depth at that position if you were able to add one big piece in free agency, which might be the Giants' line of thinking, and then they may attack the linebacker in the first round. That's very possible with Isaiah Simmons if they decide to go cornerback in free agency. And I still think they need to attack the offensive tackle, either or. So we'll have to wait and see in 2 weeks how it all plays out. Other thing I wanted to go over was just the contract specifics with Alex Tanney. This came out today. The option on Tanney is non-guaranteed unless he makes the final roster, which will account for a cap hit of just over $1 million, including a signing bonus of $37,500 and a workout bonus of $25,000. So it's basically a league minimum contract. It's not much money for a guy that's been in the league as long as he has. I don't mind this at all. He's got familiarity with Daniel Jones, and he's not the definitive backup. He's a guy that's going to come in. He's going to compete with another potential free agent that the New York Giants may bring on the roster or potentially draft later in the draft. Of course, the Giants have done that in the past. They've spent some later picks on guys like Kyle Aletta. I wouldn't want to spend anything higher than a 6th or 7th on a quarterback, being that Daniel Jones is the definitive starter. If they're going to bring in a backup, a guy that you know is going to be the backup, I'd much rather be in free agency. But I think Tanney's going to at least get a shot to compete for that backup spot. And I think, his chemistry with Daniel Jones certainly has a lot to do with it. As far as the cornerback spot goes, don't be surprised if the New York Giants go after Byron Jones. They've been linked to him before. I made a video on it a couple of weeks ago. And now word is coming out that, at least according to scouts at the Combine, that the New York Giants may be targeting that position heavily in free agency and making it their number one priority. We'll have to wait and see. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.